The moment I opened the door, I knew something was wrong. It wasn't just the silence, or the faint sound of my sister's laugh drifting from the living room. It was the suitcase, sitting by the door like a planted flag. A big one, the kind you don't bring for a weekend visit. My keys were still in my hand when I saw her. Hair tied up, feet on the coffee table, remote in hand like she belonged. If you've ever come home to a surprise that tested your boundaries, like subscribe and stay for more stories where saying no rewrites the rules. She grinned. Welcome home, sis. I looked at my roommate, Tara, who emerged from the kitchen with 2 mugs. Hope it's okay, she said. She needed a place to crash, and you were gone for 2 weeks. Crash? 2 weeks? I stared at my sister, unemployed since spring, charming enough to float through couches, and historically allergic to rent. She'd been texting me sporadically during my trip, nothing that hinted at this. I set down my bag. So, how long exactly is she staying? Tara glanced at my sister. Just till she finds something stable. The language was vague, but the tone was set. I'd walked into a situation that had already decided I'd accept it. No conversation. No heads up. No keys exchanged, just the assumption that my space, paid for equally, was up for redistribution. I kept it calm. Sat down. Asked them both directly. Are we talking days or months? Tara gave a non-answer. My sister changed the subject. And that's when I knew this wasn't temporary. This was a setup. The next morning, I made coffee, sat at the kitchen counter, and pulled out the spreadsheet I used to track our shared bills. I wasn't in the mood for confrontation, just clarity. My sister was asleep on the couch, blankets everywhere, charger stretched across the floor, her empty mug still on the side table. Tara walked in a few minutes later, already dressed for work, casually humming as if everything was normal. I cut to it. So, about rent. Has she talked to you about contributing? Tara paused, blinked slowly, and set her coffee down. She's between jobs, you know that. I nodded. I'm not asking for full rent from her. I'm asking how long you expect me to pay her share. Her smile faltered. You're her sister. I figured you'd help her out. That was the moment, the pivot. The flick of expectation that landed squarely on my shoulders, as if biology overrode financial fairness. I reminded her that we split rent evenly, that utilities weren't free, that our lease was based on 2 tenants, not 3. Tara crossed her arms, leaned back on the counter. She's not a stranger. She's family. She's not going to be homeless. The implication sat heavy between us. If I insisted on rent, I was cruel. If I asked for boundaries, I lacked compassion. Meanwhile, my sister still hadn't woken up, still hadn't offered to clean, buy groceries, or even say the words thank you. That weekend, she started referring to our place as home. I emailed our landlord that night, quietly, politely, just to ask, can we talk about unauthorized tenants? Because family isn't an excuse to pretend fairness doesn't exist. And kindness isn't a one-way transaction. By week 2, the house had changed. My sister had started leaving her clothes in the bathroom, her job applications on the kitchen table, and her takeout trash in the recycling bin. Tara pretended not to notice. Or maybe she noticed and didn't care. Either way, the silence became its own language. Every time I brought up rent, or even hinted at a time frame, I was met with sighs, glances, and a growing tension that made home feel like a performance. I tried diplomacy first. Sat them both down on a Saturday afternoon. I'm happy to support her for a short time, I said. But I can't carry 3 people's living costs indefinitely. Tara barely looked at me. My sister rolled her eyes. It's not like I'm here forever, she said, folding her arms. God, you act like I'm stealing from you. I showed them the spreadsheet, highlighted our monthly totals, pointed out that her presence increased utility usage by 40%. Tara's response? It's just money. And that's when I understood. They had decided that my practicality was the problem, not the unpaid rent, not the lack of consent, but the fact that I expected contribution in a place where they decided I should just absorb the inconvenience. I followed up with the landlord. She responded quickly. Pre-release, no additional long-term guests are permitted without prior approval from all tenants and the property owner. That was my leverage. I printed the email, left a copy on the fridge. By Monday, the atmosphere had shifted. The eye rolls turned sharper. Tara stopped making coffee for both of us. My sister started leaving passive-aggressive notes like, "Thanks for your generosity," next to the dishes I'd washed. But they knew now. I wasn't bluffing, and if they pushed, I'd escalate. Because enabling entitlement only trains people to ignore consequences. The morning I delivered the official notice was oddly quiet. My sister had gone out for a networking brunch with friends, which I later learned meant drinking bottomless mimosas while job hunting on Instagram. Tara was at work. I used the silence to slide 2 printed letters, one for each of them, under their doors. They weren't dramatic, just firm. One was a request for rent payment due within 10 days. The other was notice of formal reporting to the property manager if the situation remained unresolved. By the time evening hit, the house had teeth. Tara walked in first. "No hey." Just a scoff and a muttered, "Are you serious?" I nodded. "I'm done asking." She launched into a monologue about how this wasn't how roommates handled things, that I should have talked to her face to face, that I was turning a personal issue into a legal one. I reminded her that they turned a financial one into a personal attack. "You know she's trying," Tara snapped. "What happened to compassion?" "It got buried under my overdue share of the power bill," I said. My sister came back late that night, phone in one hand, a small shopping bag in the other. She was mid-sentence on a call when she picked up the paper from the floor. Her face went still. Then the shouting started. "Seriously? You're evicting your own sister? Over a few weeks of help?" I didn't yell. I didn't even stand. I just said, "You never asked for help. You just assumed it." What they didn't realize was that I had already spoken with the property manager. She had approved the notice. And if they pushed further, it would escalate to a legal complaint, one that would put both their names on record. They spent the next few days sulking, whispering, plotting something, maybe. But I held firm. Rent or leave. No exceptions. Because sometimes the softest voice carries the most finality. And mine no longer needed to explain itself. Tara was the first to go. She didn't give a long speech or offer a goodbye. Just left her key on the counter one Thursday morning and texted that she'd found a better roommate situation. I didn't reply. Her name was still on the lease, and I forwarded that to the property manager with a note that she'd vacated voluntarily. Within 48 hours, a new tenant moved into her room. Someone I'd chosen, someone with references and proof of income. That left my sister. She hung around a few days longer, quieter, less smug. She knew her free ride was ending, but part of her still expected me to flinch, to cave, to pull her aside and say, "Stay. It's okay. I'll figure it out." But I didn't. I watched her pack slowly, muttering about how people who act like family don't throw blood out like garbage. She cried once, loud enough for me to hear. A performance, perhaps. Or real. I didn't go to her. When she left, she didn't say goodbye. I didn't chase her. 3 weeks later, I got a text from our aunt. My sister had moved in with her temporarily. She was looking for work and trying to stay grounded. I wished her the best, quietly, without guilt, because boundaries aren't a betrayal. They're a form of care for yourself and sometimes even for the people who don't understand them. The apartment was peaceful after that. Still. Predictable. I brewed coffee in silence and paid exactly my half of everything, no more, no less. And every time I passed the spot where that suitcase first sat, I remembered the lesson. Sometimes saying no is the most generous thing you can do for people who've mistaken your silence for consent. If you've ever been guilt for enforcing boundaries, like subscribe and stay for more stories where quiet strength reclaims your space.